people, Earth walkers, reach up to the stars with me. This is Letters to Celebrity. On this episode, I reach out to Tom Delonge. Dear Tom Delonge, I'm a musician too, and I loved your album Enema of the State when I was a teenager. I still listen to one song in particular. It's called Aliens Exist. This was like the year 2000, I think, maybe late 90s, but the point is, this was probably when the world at large learned that you had an interest in the UFO phenomenon. Me too. I saw one once. On my birthday, camping with friends all alone deep in the wilderness of Bryce Canyon, Utah, we hadn't seen another hiker or camper or car for miles. We had built a big fire because it was cold and we were standing around it, drinking beers, telling stories, when suddenly one of my friends said, "You guys seeing this?" We all looked to where he pointed and saw a giant glowing white orb expanding in the sky. I'd never seen anything like it. I cannot tell you how powerful and disorienting that moment was. The white orb began to expand. It stood still in the sky and grew. My mind raced with possibility, trying to make sense of what I was looking at. Now, I did not in that moment go straight to UFO. It was unidentified, obviously, but I did not immediately believe it to be an object. And yes, it was in the sky, but it wasn't really moving or flying. It certainly did not look like what I'd come to understand flying saucers should look like, or the widely reported tic-tac-shaped craft, or the giant, slow-moving triangle-shaped airships that hundreds of people reported seeing in Phoenix so many years ago. So what were we seeing? I didn't know. I felt fear. It were as if I was flipping through a catalog of potential classifications, and the first thing I landed on was, maybe an explosion left an odd bright circle of gas in the night sky? Since it was unidentified, we had no frame of reference, which means we could not tell how far away it was, which means we had no conception of how large it was. But it took up far more space than a full moon. Though I assure you, Tom, it was not the moon. My writer imagination kicked in, and immediately I thought maybe the government was testing some kind of experimental weapon. They had set off a bomb or something in the sky, and they had assumed no one was in this general area, and so we were about to be enveloped by the strange glowing thing. Maybe it would continue to expand until it filled the sky and consumed us. But before that thought could fully form, and before I could present it to my friends, we watched as the orb stopped expanding and slowly, over the period of a few minutes, faded away until it was completely gone. We were flipping out. And no one had any phone service, so we couldn't check the internet for an explanation. Instead, we just talked about it for an hour and then went back to telling childhood stories and whatever else you do with your buddies while camping. Anyway, once we got out of the national park and started getting some service, we checked and found out that tons of people had reported seeing a strange phenomenon in the sky in California. Though none of the videos looked like what we saw, we had to assume that we were seeing the same thing from a different angle way over there in Utah. The government said it was a missile test. Everyone accepted this right away, but I didn't, because I've studied the government, and it turns out that when it comes to the military, the CIA, and strange sightings in the sky, the government fucking lies constantly. And even if they were telling the truth, why the fuck would they shoot a missile over California? What? Why is everyone just like, oh, that explains it. I'm normal and totally fine with the military shooting missiles over my city. But again, why would they lie? Well, there are tons of reasons to lie. Usually the theorized reason to keep aliens and UFOs hidden is that people would freak out. They would get scared. That's why you have to tell them something that's not scary, like, oh, don't worry, we were just shooting a weapon of mass destruction with no warning over the bedrooms of your sleeping children. Huh. That actually seems scary too. But whatever, they definitely lie. In your song, Aliens Exist, you sing, I know the CIA would say, what you see is all hearsay. Wish someone would tell me what was right. Me too, Tom. Me too. This is the strange logical fallacy I think all of us UFO-interested people tend to fall into. We know the government has an official record of lying about and covering up and containing and classifying UFO videos and sightings, and yet it is that same government that we expect and want to disclose the truth. But that's the problem with liars. When they finally tell the truth, how on earth will we know that it's actually the truth? Like, what if suddenly the Pentagon teams up with the New York Times and releases a bunch of strange black and white infrared fighter pilot footage of UFOs? And the Pentagon says, here, these things we said were all figments of your imagination, here they are, and we don't know what they are either. What then? And I only ask because that's what happened. Okay, let's delve into it, Tom. Buckle up. This gets complicated. But I will tell it back to you real quick as I witnessed it all go down. First, you were a punk rocker 20 years ago. Though a lot of people called you a poser, but we're all posers, man. I know I fucking am. Anyway, 25 years later, I saw you on Joe Rogan, and you seemed kind of crazy. You were saying that you had evidence of UFOs and that you, pop-punk icon and writer of the song Dick Lips, were working with all these shadowy government defense agency intelligence guys, military deep state dudes, who had access to all these crazy official sightings and even videos. You just couldn't show anyone or name any of the people. And I don't know if you were or not, but it kind of seemed like you were on coke, which I ain't hating on, it's just seemed like it to me. But you could have just had a sinus thing and been real amped up. The point is, even I, who really wanted and want to believe that UFO disclosure is right around the corner, kind of thought I smelled bullshit, and that the Blink 182 guy had lost his fucking mind. Which was rude, but like, you gotta understand that when you listen to as many conspiracy theory dudes and alien dudes as I do, and you are always trying to weed out the good information from the made up stuff, one of the biggest red flags is when someone keeps referencing amazing evidence or documents, but also claims to be unable to produce those documents. Anyway, I was totally wrong because then you produced the documents and introduced us to all these shadowy government Pentagon Department of Defense guys, and it was exciting. It was like suddenly all those guys who had been lying to us since the 40s were now coming out of the shadows to tell us the truth and show us all these interesting videos of UFOs that we could stack on top of all the other videos we already had of UFOs. But this time, they were coming from the American military, which lies to us always, but again, now it was the truth. And apparently the truth is, the message from the Pentagon is, we don't know what these things are. Okay. But what? Why tell me that? Is this really what you have been hiding all this time? That you don't know what the weird UFOs are? Why have you been hiding that information? Why are you telling me now? It's like if you had come to believe your partner has been cheating on you since the 40s, and you know this because they were sighted all over town. Your partner just keeps denying that the photos are real, and your partner said the photos are just hoaxes and just misleading pictures of swamp gas or weather balloons. And then one day your partner says, okay, I actually was totally lying to you. Those pictures are real. And you say, okay, so you have been cheating on me since 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico. And your partner says, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the pictures are real. But I can't explain what those pictures are or confirm they are pictures of me committing adultery. I'm just saying they were real pictures and I don't know what's going on with them. Then I'm stuck being like, okay, Does this metaphor make sense, Tom? Do you see how you teaming up with the people who have been actively lying to us for the better part of a century actually produces more questions than answers? You know? And look, maybe it's different for you. You know these guys. They're your friends. Well, let's meet your To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences and its team of UFO truth tellers. So first, we got you, but we all know you. Next, we got Harold E. Puthoff, an electrical engineer. Okay, good start. That sounds like a guy who could say something interesting about flying saucers. Oh, look at this. He is also a parapsychologist. What's that? I'm not exactly sure. Let's see, what else is he? Oh, he was a Scientologist for many years, and in that church he harnessed his ability as a remote viewer. That's when you allow your consciousness to leave your body and teleport that consciousness to faraway places, even other planets, and then you view those places remotely. Oh wait, but he severed all ties to Scientology. Does that mean he can no longer do remote viewing? Whatever. Then he went to work for the CIA on something called Project Stargate, where he studied people's psychic abilities in a military kind of way. Wow, okay. So this is a scientist, psychic, Scientologist, CIA dude. That's wild. Okay, who else? Well, then we got Jim Semivin. Semivin? I can't really find out much about him, but he has purportedly spent the last 25 years in the CIA. Sure. Makes sense why we know nothing about him. He's a lifelong spy turned professional UFO guy. Fine. Then there's Christopher Mellon. So this is a big one. He was the Deputy Secretary of Defense for Intelligence from 1999 to 2002. Huh. So he was Deputy Secretary of Defense for Intelligence during 9/11 and the beginnings of the 20-year war on terror. And now he's a UFO guy. Then we got the one who became most famous, Lou Elizondo. He's been the most active in the media. You have probably seen him. He kind of looks like Alex Jones, but with a funny goatee that makes him look like he plays bass for like System of a Down or something. So what's his super credible background? Let me pull up Wikipedia. Okay, so he also worked as an intelligence agent, also for the Department of Defense. And he ran CIA-sponsored military operations in Afghanistan, South America, and Guantanamo Bay. Wait, like the prison? He ran CIA operations in a notoriously awful military prison where they still hold men without trial indefinitely? What would the CIA do in Guantanamo Bay? Oh, right. We know what they do there. So, Lou, you were doing torture? In South America, what on earth were you doing there? Coups and shit? Well, let's see what he says. Okay. He, quote, dealt with a lot of stuff, like coup d'etats, black market terrorism, violent drug cartels, all that kind of stuff, end quote. God fucking damn it, Lou. I like him a lot less now, Tom. But anyway, then he became a UFO guy, and I do prefer this career, I guess. Okay, so if you are keeping track at home, we got 5 guys, like the burger place, 4 of which are spies, 1 of which is a psychic Scientologist, 1 of which proudly worked in a notorious CIA torture prison, 1 of which was the Assistant Deputy of Defense Intelligence during the biggest and most successful and mysterious attack on America since Pearl Harbor, when the government passed the most draconian surveillance program known to mankind, and then launched us into a 20-year war on anybody and everybody we felt like killing. And 1 guy we have no idea what he was up to for the 25 years except that he was a CIA agent. And of course we got you, the pop star who wrote the song Dysentery Gary. Alright, so almost everything these guys do for the vast majority of their careers is classified. Big secrets, military coups, full-on invasions, likely torture. And then all of a sudden they decide to show the New York Times some video of what we are told is unidentified? Why? And then what did they even say except, we don't know what this is? Also, it might be a threat? Seriously, they kept saying that shit. If you listen to all the interviews and watch all the documentaries, all these guys keep reinforcing the idea that whatever these UFOs are, they might be a threat to the US military. Interesting. So 4 intelligence guys who used fear, specifically the fear of further terrorism, the threat of WMDs, the threat of nuclear proliferation, all of these potential threats to launch us into war, are now telling us there is a new threat. Let's put a pin in that. So then there's the New York Times thing, which involves all these guys and the top secret Pentagon program called AATIP. AATIP. This was a secret program launched by Harry Reid to study UFOs. This is what the New York Times wrote. Great. Except it wasn't called that and it didn't do that. Seriously, it's all way stranger and super murky and not at all clear, which honestly isn't surprising when I remind myself that we are talking about the CIA and the Pentagon. Okay, but if that shit is wrong, what's the real story then? Well, after all the press and excitement about the videos and these Pentagon insiders finally telling us about aliens and the New York Times article, it turns out AATIP is not actually real, sort of not real. People started poking holes in the story. For example, AATIP was sometimes reported as standing for the Advanced Aerospace Threat Investigation Program, but sometimes they swap aerospace with aerial. Sometimes they swap it with aviation. What is always the same is the word threat. Anyway, then it came out that there is no actual program called AATIP. AATIP was actually a nickname for a program called AAWSAP. Okay, I'm already confused. See, if the Pentagon had a program with the acronym AAWSAP, why would they make a nickname for the program another acronym? And why give the press the nickname acronym instead of the real acronym? And when giving the nickname, why did they give that acronym various different base words? Was it purposefully to make it confusing? Make it hard to check into? I guess that would make sense because AAWSAP was apparently not just a UFO tracking program, but studied Skinwalker Ranch, ghosts, and werewolves, among other stuff. Seriously. Then it came out that your dude Lou Elizondo did not even work on AAWSAP, but actually, once the program was shut down, unofficially took over the nickname AATIP and made it his own personal unofficial project. So it's super confusing. Let me try to sum it up. There was a $22 million Pentagon project called AAWSAP that studied UFOs, ghosts, Skinwalker Ranch, and werewolves, and got shut down really quickly. And it had a nickname called AATIP. And so Lou Elizondo, who may or may not be a Guantanamo Bay torturer, on his own called dibs on the name AATIP and kind of pretended it was an actual Pentagon program so that later he could tell the New York Times that he worked for a Pentagon program that studied UFOs. So Tom, you have a team of professional liars, spies, counterintelligence experts, mass manipulators, who all at once decided to, in the weirdest, most confusing way possible, claim to have decided to tell the truth. And once again, the only truth they have decided to tell us is that they don't know what the strange sightings in the sky are, only that they are a threat. Well, dude, is this it? Is that the end of disclosure? Because all I am is more confused. And now we got the government shooting down spy balloons and shooting down 3 UFOs but claiming to not know what the UFOs are. I'm fucking confused, dude. I can't help but feel like they are using UFO sightings to get people scared and try to bolster the military. Or maybe they just really don't know what these UFOs are. I don't fucking know, man. Reminds me of your song when you sing, I know the CIA would say, what you hear is all hearsay. Wish someone would tell me what was right. So crazy. You wrote that shit 20 years ago. So fucking crazy, man. Love, Brian.